The ouster of now former Attorney General Pam Bondi could signal trouble for other top officials in the Trump administration. The Atlantic reports that there are active discussions about additional departures, including FBI Director Kash Patel, Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll, and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer. That's according to several people familiar with the plans. But the White House has brushed off those claims. For now, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche has been elevated to acting Attorney General. And within hours of Bondi's firing, images began circulating of her framed portrait unceremoniously removed from its place of honor on the walls of the Justice Department offices. MS Now obtained the photo of the portrait in a trash bin. Sources say Bondi's failure to successfully prosecute Trump's perceived political adversaries, plus her handling of the Epstein files fallout, are part of the reason for her firing, despite being one of Trump's most loyal foot soldiers. A loyalty that was on display during Bondi's heated testimony before the House Judiciary Committee in February.
Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin.
I'm sorry.
Not the Dow. Joining us now, Paul Butler, MS Now legal analyst, former federal prosecutor and professor at Georgetown School of Law, and Tolu Olorunnipa, staff writer at The Atlantic. Hey, guys, thanks for being here this morning. Tolu, I want to start with some of the reporting that you all have. From what I'm hearing, it seems like this job is sort of Todd Blanche's to lose at this point, that him being elevated to acting attorney general is kind of a trial run. When you're looking at sort of the buffet, as Eugene likes to say, cribbed from Michelle Norris, of potential options here, people whose names have been mentioned that Trump is considering, who are also just floating their own names, maybe in an attempt to burnish their own reputation. But Jeanine Pirro, Lee Zeldin, Eric Schmidt, what do you think that Todd Blanche needs to do in order to solidify his job security?
Well, this is a tough job for any person in the Trump administration. We saw what happened to Jeff Sessions. We saw what happened to Bill Barr. It's hard to please a president who wants his attorney general to be his personal lawyer, going after his enemies and using the full force of the Justice Department to prosecute his enemies, protect himself, and protect his friends without really thinking about the Constitution or the rule of law or any of the things that typical attorney generals focus on.
Well, you put it like that, Tony.
That's what the president wants. We've seen him over the last 9 years talk about publicly what he wants from his attorney general. But he is going to go about this apprentice style. He has someone in there now with Todd Blanche who he wants to prove that he can do what the president wants, prove that he can lock up the president's opponents, people like James Comey, people like Letitia James, people who Pam Bondi was not able to get in front of a courtroom and get behind bars. We'll see if Todd Blanche goes a little bit more in trying to do that, even though, there's not very much evidence that they need to be prosecuted for the things that they are accused of. But this is a trial run. This is an apprentice-style, audition for Todd Blanche to get the job. And the task that he's being asked to perform, if he can do it over the next weeks and months, is to protect the president, protect his friends, and lock up his opponents. And that is something that very difficult for any attorney general to do, but something the president wants very, very candidly.
Paul, all of those people who could be the attorney general, I still believe that it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump seems to be running the DOJ. What he wants gets done. But I do want to look a little bit of info on Todd Blanche. Current acting attorney general, he was Trump's personal attorney in the hush money criminal conviction, federal election interference case, classified docs case. He's a deputy attorney general under Bondi. On February 2025, during confirmation hearings, when asked if he's still Trump's lawyer, he said, yes, my attorney-client relationship with President Trump remains. Hold on to that. I want to get to that. July 24th to 25th of last year, he went down and interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell. September of last year, defended his decision to interview her, arguing that whether or not she was a credible witness was an impossible question. December 2025, he announced that the DOJ would release hundreds of thousands of Epstein files, and then it released only a small fraction of that amount. And the department made more files public at the end of January, as we remember. This is not a man, it seems, that in other presidencies might get the job. But I really want to get back to this. I mean, yes, my attorney-client relationship with President Trump remains. If he is the Attorney General, acting Attorney General, if he goes back and becomes the actual Attorney General of the United States, can that still be true? That his attorney-client relationship with President Trump remains. Now, does it remain for everything that they talk about, or does it just remain for the cases that they tried?
It does, unless the president would agree to waive it, which he should, since it presents an obvious conflict of interest, but he won't. Trump wouldn't do that. And as a practical matter, the consequences would be for Blanche and his law license, which is a reason why I don't know why any attorney with integrity would take this job, because if you work for Donald Trump, you are going to get in trouble with the bar. To your point, if we look at the attorneys general he's chosen, each one has been more compliant and more subservient. So he was mad at Barr. He was mad at Sessions because of the Russian investigation, and so he selected Barr. Barr said that the Russian investigation was a witch hunt, but the big lie was too far a bridge for Barr. And so Bondi, during her confirmation hearings, said that she couldn't say whether Trump had lost the 2020 election. And in fact, she sicked the FBI to go and get the voting machines from Georgia. So she's relitigating something that is about the big lie, something that's clear. So again, if that wasn't high enough for an attorney general to jump for Trump, then what's he looking for now? I mean, how high does he want someone to jump? It's not crazy for clients to ask attorneys to do things that the attorneys can't do. That's why attorneys are called counselors. But you have to listen. And when your client doesn't listen, you know what you do? You quit.
Yeah. In a normal world. So the New York Times reported the headline, Bondi wanting a graceful exit. She wanted a graceful exit. I'm going to read this from the story. Bondi hoped to save her job, or at the very least buy a little more time until the summer to give herself a graceful exit. Bondi's precipitous fall laid bare a cornerstone truth of Trump's second term. Loyalty, flattery, and obeisance are prerequisites for power, but they don't provide durable protection from a president intent on carrying out his maximalist personal and political goals. So this sort of encapsulates the issues for the next attorney general, whoever that person might be, Todd Blanche. So one of the things, that's my prediction, one of the things in I can't remember which organization pointed this out, the president was really upset that she could not bring any prosecutions or get any convictions of his political enemies. Whoever the next attorney general is still going to have that as a top priority of the president. We talk about the big ones, Letitia James, James Comey, our pal, the former CIA director, John Brennan. Those might be tough, but I'm wondering, you mentioned Georgia and Fulton County. Is there anything stopping the Department of Justice and the future Attorney General from going after Fani Willis?
No. And not only Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, who made Donald Trump a convicted felon 34 times over. Jack Smith needs to be nervous, not because there's evidence that any of those people have committed a crime, but that wouldn't be a bar to an unethical prosecutor going after them. At minimum, you make them spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorney's fees.
The process is the punishment.
Exactly.
Yeah.